All right, so here we have it, celebrating 100 subs with a 100-year-old recipe. We're making pineapple porkettes. I found this recipe in a cookbook that my mom had, which I'm going to tell a story before I say any more details because in all of my other takes, I forgot where I'm at. So, story time up at my parents'. I made a number of meals for them, all of which I was like, oh, made this in a video, made that in a video, talking about the videos and whatnot. Not ringing any bells. They were just like, I've never heard of any of these recipes. So the position which I thought was filled, which was number one fans, mom and dad. That's who I thought had that role. Apparently not. So if anybody wants to volunteer for being my number one fan, let me know. Position's apparently vacant. I wasn't aware, but now that I know, I'm on the lookout. So this recipe, I tried to find a modern version online to maybe give me some like tips, tricks, any kind of guidance on where this might lead me. Either the name is completely different or it's gone out of fashion, but I could not find anything remotely closest. The only thing I could find similar were Hawaiian burgers, which is like a pork patty with a slice of pineapple on top of that. But I mean, no sweet potato, I don't think any bacon, but I did use that for, I'm adding a little extra seasoning, which you're not going to see in the ingredients because I filmed that before I made this decision. It is a little bit of, my mom told me so, because the recipe calls for ham. And in my head, it's specifically ground ham. It says raw or uncooked or cooked ham ground. And I was like, well, that's just a weird way of saying ground pork. I mean, they don't sell ground ham. I feel like you might be able to get away with it by using like ground sausage. Like if you buy like the mild, sweet, hot kind of sausage, I feel like that could be a good substitute because then you don't have to add any seasoning or anything like that. What I did was just add in some seasoning, called it a day. I guess you could buy a ham and grind it up yourself. I'm assuming that's what they did back in the day, or maybe they actually like ground ham was a product that you could buy. But my mom called it, this is me admitting she's right, but based on what I previously stated, she's probably not going to see this, so she'll never be able to hold that over my head. All right, I can't make too many jokes, because if she does happen to watch this, I will be taken out of the will. Let's run through the ingredients and get into cooking, and then we'll do a taste test to see if these stood up to the test of time. Canned pineapples, ground pork, an egg, mashed sweet potatoes, salt, pepper, and bacon. The first step is going to be to mix together the pork as well as the beaten egg and any seasoning that you see fit. I personally am going to add in some garlic, ginger, salt, and pepper, as well as onion powder. The recipe actually doesn't call for any seasoning here because it originally called for ground ham, which has a curing process, gets the flavors in there that way. So this is a little bit of dealer's choice, whatever flavors you think will work. Put those in there. I'm just kind of assuming, but I think it should be good in the end. Next, we're going to mix in some salt and pepper to the mashed sweet potatoes. Just sprinkle on top, stir it up. There you go. The next step, I would argue, is optional because we're going to cut the pineapple slice in half. And if you don't have a sharp knife, that's going to be very dangerous. And even if you have a sharp knife, it's still dangerous because trying to cut it in half requires a knife to be very close to your hand. I would not recommend trying to do it vertically. Horizontally on the table like I did is the way to go, but even then you're still really close to your hand. So if you feel unsure about this step, just skip it. You'll have a bigger chunk of pineapple. Not the end of the world. Now the next step is going to be the assembly. Pretty simple. I'm actually technically doing it in the reverse order from what the recipe says, but this just feels like it flows a little bit smoother. So it's bacon first, kind of in a crisscross manner, slice of pineapple, and then I'm going to do sweet potato, ham, or pork. In my case, the recipe calls for ham, pork, and then the other slice of pineapple, fold the bacon back on top so it, overlaps, and then flip it all over so that that seam is on the bottom. Stick the toothpicks through so it holds it all together. And now finally, we're just going to throw that in the oven at 350 for 75 minutes. Granted, 75 minutes feels like a very long time, so I'm going to be checking on those periodically, but recipe says 75 minutes, so that's what I'm doing. All right, so I made a lot of comments in the intro, kind of about what's going on here, so I don't make too many before doing the taste test. The one thing I will say that I didn't mention there, from the just aroma, I feel like if I used like maple bacon, that might have been a good move. But I don't know. Once I do the taste test, we'll see if that kind of lines up. But when I pulled this out of the oven, my brain just went maple bacon. So let's give this a taste test and see how we did. Honestly, quite tasty. A little bland in like the seasoning front, so definitely need improvement there for the pork in there, but that could probably be alleviated by adding more seasoning in that step that I did, maybe doing the sausage method that I talked about in the intro, or even just doing the correct thing for the recipe, buying a ham, getting a meat grinder, grinding that up, and using that. That might solve that as well. The sweet potatoes, I'm not really sure what they're doing there, because I didn't really pick up a lot on them, but I guess maybe they're giving some volume. They probably just absorb the flavors of the things around them. Not really sure what the logic was there. Now, the other little comment on like the literal structure of this is the pineapple. I honestly want a little bit more of that. So in that step where it calls for you to split them in half, I feel like don't do that. Just leave them as their whole chunk, put them on the top and the bottom. I think that would just be a better experience. Plus, then it takes out the risk of having to slice those in half. In terms of things that like weren't directly in this recipe, when I did the research for like the Hawaiian burger with the pork and the pineapple, a lot of them had some kind of like teriyaki sauce going on. So either making some kind of glaze to put on top of these, or maybe like a marinade for the meat. I'm not really sure, because I didn't dive too far into it. I just kind of saw that in the title. But like doing something like that, I feel like would add some interesting flavor to this. But yeah, so handful of ways that these might be improved. And I only made a half portion of this because I figured eat it while it's warm. And so I'll make the other 4 probably tomorrow. And maybe I'll look to see if I have the ingredients for making some kind of like a teriyaki sauce. And I'll give that a go. And then there will probably be some text someplace above me. So that'll probably be my first tweak of this. Obviously, I did technically tweak it by adding the seasoning and whatnot to the pork itself, but definitely needs a little bit more there. So yeah, just a number of little ways to do improvements, and I'm pretty excited for this, because this is a fairly simple recipe. So you can kind of throw this together, and maybe I won't eat one of these and I'll see how it reheats, so then it can be potentially like a meal prep. We'll see how that goes. That might be another experiment to give a go. And then obviously text will be someplace saying if it was successful or unsuccessful. Yep, so hopefully you are inspired. Go make something. Go cook. It doesn't really matter what it is. New is more fun, but just go cook something. Get in the kitchen, make something, and yeah, it's a good time. I enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. And on that note, bye, Mom. Still not dead. See ya.